Welcome to Heart of the Matter podcast. I'm back. Oh, where my music at? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So, welcome back to Heart of the Matter podcast, where we discuss the issues that matter most to your heart. And again, I'm Sherry J, your host, and I'm going to be just diving right into our topic today about where have the fathers gone. And we're really going to be discussing some history behind the fatherlessness of society and the epidemic that's going on. It's just a large amount of our society and community that are without fathers. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the topic. All right. I hope everybody's doing good today and that everybody is having a wonderful Wednesday. It's sunny outside. It's nice. I haven't been outside, but I heard that it's warm. So, but back to the matter of hand, I'm just going to be again discussing the epidemic of fatherlessness. So, this is going to be probably, we're going to talk about this more than one time, of course, because it's so much to go into it. But I wanted to, like, basically, if there's going to be men on, I want men on, I want your feedback. I want to hear what you have to say regarding this topic. I'm not biased. I'm fair. And so, I'm for what is right. That's what I have to be. I have integrity and I have to be for what's right. So, just to jump into the topic today about fatherlessness, I have three reasons why, the top three reasons I believe why the fatherlessness exists so much, why it's so large and has become an epidemic over the last few, not few, decades or so. So, the first reason why fatherlessness has become so widespread is because of the welfare system. Yeah, I know. That sounds crazy, right? Welfare is still going on, but I did some research on this topic and it was called AFDC back in the day. So, Aid to Families with Dependent Children. And if you have parents who came up in like the 60s or so, they probably understand and know what that is, what that was. It was called AFDC. So it started back in 1935, and this was when President Franklin Roosevelt was the presiding president during the Great or after the Great Depression. And it was actually a Social Security Act to where you were able to receive Social Security because there were a lot of people, of course, after the Great Depression that was homeless, or not homeless, but in great poverty, just basically single mothers, children. And then also you have to think about there were a lot of single moms after the wars and things like that. So basically, a lot of fathers died because they went off to war. So that was the whole point of creating Social Security and the welfare system. It was really to help the children who were orphans, the mothers who were widows. However, it kind of progressed into actually being used by 90% of single parents, divorcees, and women that just never married. So I wrote some things down about it. It was actually, let's see. Hold on one second. Let me get my notes because yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. One second. Let me get this. Okay. So, there was about 90% of welfare recipients who were divorced, separated, or never married mothers who were actually using welfare at around like 1960s, 70s. So, meaning it was intended for widows and orphans. However, they saw a breakdown of the family because of it. So, meaning the men left the homes and the women became single mothers or even married families divorced because of the epidemic of welfare. And so, child support is actually my second topic. So if we talk about, let me just stick to welfare right quick. And if you have something to say, just drop it, drop the comment below. But I was discussing this, and hopefully she gets on my one of my friends, and we were talking about Section 8 and how Section 8 used to be where the men could stay in the home, and I know she was telling me that that wasn't the case, but I researched that and I seen that there was a rule called no man in the home rule, and it was in 1968 where the rule got abolished. But before then, in like the 60s and things like that, the women could not have their husband stay in the house. So if you had a husband, you could not qualify for aid, which a lot of people were poor and they needed it. So of course they needed the help, but if you were married, you didn't qualify for it. And then if the father was in the home, you didn't qualify. So if you guys remember stories of, parents saying or moms saying that, they had to come check your home to make sure no clothes was there and just to make sure that there was no man residing in that home. So that was a big part of the breakdown of the family, because in order to get assistance, which a lot of poor families needed, you couldn't have the husband around, you couldn't have the father around, and if you did, they would cut you off immediately. So that was kind of like intentionally done, I think, to break down the family. I know they said it wasn't, but it seems like it was, because if you're going to help a family, why not help the father as well? Because that's the whole family unit. So I did have research to see when this man in the house rule was overturned, and that man in the house rule was actually overturned in 1968. So the children. So let me just give you the actual definition or verbiage. It says, under the man in the house rule, a child who otherwise qualified for welfare benefits was denied those benefits if the child's mother was living with or having relations with any single or married able-bodied male. The man was considered a substitute father, even if the man was not supporting the child. So before 1968, this was a rule that struck all of the households, and that the welfare, of course, was a part of the Welfare Act. So I just said that to say that welfare is a part of the breakdown of the home, the breakdown of the family, as well as child support. That was my second actually aspect of why we don't have fathers. So when I looked at why we don't have fathers, majority of the fathers are paying child support. 1975 is when the Child Support Act was actually passed, and that's when private funds was actually able to be managed by the government. So that's when it started. And it says that with child support, most people thought it was unfair to manage this type of money, because all it does is it contributed to the breakdown of the family even more, because it made the women not want to stay with the men. It gave them, like, I guess, an excuse not to stay, or not even an excuse. It gave them a way out, and it kind of like incentivized the women and the mothers, like, hey, I don't need you. I can do this on my own. And because of that, it led to the breakdown of the family even more so, because after the welfare, they start seeing like, hey, it's too many women that are not married now, or, using the welfare. We got to make these fathers pay for it, even though the intent was to remove the fathers. Now the system was so, overloaded, that they had to start making the men pay. So now the men are still not in the home, but now they're actually paying child support, for children that they still probably are not seeing. And I agree. I think child support should actually be taken out of men's check if they are not providing, right? If they are not doing what they're supposed to do. I think that that should be an option, because we do have men that are irresponsible and they don't take care of their children. I'm not saying all men, but we have a lot of men that do that. But I think one of the reasons why this is occurring is because child support kind of leaves you with no choice. It's like, so you have to actually pay money for a child, whether you like it or not. And not saying that, I know most men, they don't care about helping and paying child support or helping their children, but some men do take care of their children. And even though they take care of the children, they still have to pay child support. So I think that really the system is just jacked up, against the men. I'm not an advocate for just like the women rule all and things like that. I think we should be fair. If you're a man who's not taking care of your responsibilities, then you should pay child support. Why not? But if you are a man who are trying to do, what you're supposed to do towards your child, then I think that there shouldn't be so much bias between, what's going on in the system right now. So I'm just going to pause. I see, hey, Joe, and I see, hey, cuz you said, I'm sorry, Samuel, sorry. You said, what about taking child support from women? Ooh, I think that happens. I don't know how likely it is now from women because women normally were like nurturers. They stayed with the family, they stayed with the children. They didn't really account for a lot of child support. Like up until like around 1975 when this was passed, they didn't account for most of the people having money taken out of their checks. It was mostly men because the woman stayed in the home. They stayed with the children. That's just the way it happened. But here we have here. Let me go back to my notes here. Okay. So yeah, the child support system, and I actually saw this quote from a social worker who actually studied the child support epidemic too, and child support. His name was Joel Handler. And this is what he said. He said, enforcing child support and work can be administered punitively. He said, I worry, for example, that that we collect more child support from the relatively poor fathers of children on welfare, and that money will not be used to reduce poverty of single mothers and children. We may wind up instead paying or playing Robin Hood in reverse, and we may use it to reduce the taxes of the middle class and upper classes, and that would be a disgrace, but it could happen. And that's what his name is Joel Handler. This is what he said about enforcing child support, that it would be basically it would be a handout to the upper and middle class because, again, most of the money, a lot of times, a lot of those fees are not going to the moms. It's going to the governments or to the counties that's actually administrating child support. So they're getting paid off of it as well. And so that's the reason why a lot of times when if you go as a man, you go down to child support, you see all these, this large balance, right? So much is going to the mom, and then it's like so many fees on there because you're paying those fees to like the government and to the courthouses and things like that. That was another thing that's contributed to the breakdown of the family. And I think, again, child support and welfare or aid or whatever, it just increases the likelihood that the mother and father won't stay together. And I'm speaking from experience because I've, been divorced. I've broken up with my children's father and things like that because, again, I did know that I could rely on the system somewhat, like, okay, well, I can always go get approved, not thinking about child support, but just thinking that I could still get, food stamps, or they'll help me with this because I'm a single parent or things like that. And it is a mentality that a lot of people have nowadays. And I'm sorry to say it, but a lot of women have that mentality. And some women even scout men out that, are really good paying men. They pay, they make good money at their jobs. And so basically they're like, okay, well, if we break up, I know I got a good payday coming, and it's unfair, but it's the way society is set up right now. And I think it's really contributing to the fatherless epidemic. Also, the last thing I believe is contributing is the men themselves. I mean, because we got to hold the men responsible. Men are being jailed. They're being incarcerated. They are selling drugs. They're killing each other. But like I say, I believe all that contributes to the single home parenting, because there was a study done that said children who have both their mom and dad in one household, they actually were more likely to grow up and get better jobs. They were more polite. The behavior was better than children who just grew up with a single mom in the home. And that's what statistics say. So when you're growing up with just one parent in the home, you're going to be prone to join gangs. You're going to be prone to say, I'm going to sell drugs because my mom is struggling. I want to help her out. That's what Tupac did, remember? But no, seriously, remember he rapped about it. He said he started slanging because his mother was working hard to make ends meet, and because she was working so hard, he wanted to help her out. And a lot of times, that's what our young men do. They turn to the streets because they're trying to figure out a way to help their moms, and the dad's not there, or they get in a gang because they need that male love or so, that they don't have at home. But my final point is, it all boils down to the breakdown of the family, which is why I created this podcast, because we want to talk about why the family is in the situation it is today. Now, we know the family is important because the family dictates society. So if you look at society, if you look at the family, you'll determine the way society is. So because there's so many broken homes and just so much single parenting and no fathers, really, that's why the society is that way. This is why the children don't have respect. It's really the system, and then it's also our fault as well, because a lot of times we have a poverty mindset where we rather stay in a poverty level, so that we will get benefits. We'll be able to receive handouts from the governments. And a lot of times us as Black people have gotten so comfortable with handouts that we don't even want to work anymore. We'll just wait on our next handout. And even our men have become that way. They don't no longer want to go hustle and make money. They'll rather just sit around and wait for the next handout, just like the women now. And so it's just gotten bad, which this has created a breakdown in our family. So what can we do to increase to decrease the epidemic of fatherlessness? So I wrote down a few different things. So the first one is, oh God, we have to do everything in our power to stay together. And I know this is hard. This is hard for everybody because so many things be going on. And like me, I know back in the day, I used to be like, if I didn't want to stay with somebody, I would leave super fast, like, because I felt like, it was always somebody better or something better. And that's just a mentality I think a lot of women have even today, even more so today. But I think we should encourage people to work it out, try to get counseling or different things like that, especially if you don't have children, wait till you get married to have children. And I know that's not realistic in society, but it can be done. And if you do have children already and you're married or whatever, just try to stick it out for the children. That's what the old people did. And I see why now. I know sometimes it's not possible. So if you're already single or divorced, just try to build a good relationship with the dad. I think, just try to make sure that, there's no conflict. If he wants to see his child, that's fine. If he doesn't, that's, on him, because men do have a responsibility. And even the Bible tells the men that if they don't take care of their children, well, these are believers. So if you're not a believer, it doesn't apply to you. But if you are a believer, then the Bible tells you that you're worse than an unbeliever if you don't take care of your family. If you don't take your own family, your family, and then even the ones in your household. It says especially the ones in your household. So those ones in your household come before any outsiders. So if you don't take care of your family, you're worse than an unbeliever. And you might as well consider yourself an unbeliever. So if you are saved Christian and you said, you're not taking care of your kids, then you are technically an unbeliever. You're not a saved Christian. And then also my point here, I have a point. Believers are also called to help widows and orphans. That's James 1:27. So if you are, you see some children who are struggling, and I have a real passion for kids, like if they're in, struggling and things like that. I don't know. I just have a heart for kids, but biblically we are to help orphans and widows. Widows, of course, are women who were married and their husband have died or gone on. And then orphans are children without fathers. So normally it could be a mother, father, or both. It could even be emotionally, or physically that they're not there. Like, of course, the father abandoned them. So they're still considered an orphan. And as believers, we are called to assist with orphans and widows. That is our duty. And that's really a determination of religion. That's our religion, to help those people in need. So it's our job, if the fathers are not stepping up, it's our job to get them to step up or to encourage them to step up, and to, if they are not, to try to fill in that void. I know it's hard, but I know there may be some men on here who may want to start some type of groups or so. And there are groups for young boys, but it shouldn't be the case just because we all should take responsibility for our children. But I understand in a perfect world that would happen, but I understand we are not perfect at all. So that is my spiel today on where the fathers have gone. I believe they have gone, some have gone on their own because of their own selfish needs, because they, are not ready to be fathers, because they lack discipline to be a father. And then I believe also that a great deal of the fathers have left because it's, the system, the welfare, the child support. I believe that that's a great deal of why we don't have a lot of fathers today. And then also the relationships with the mothers. I didn't even get into that because I want to save that topic for another day. As far as the moms, I'm gonna get a guy on to we can talk about what women are doing, and these could be women that are not with the fathers, what they do or what they don't do to make the relationship bad, where the fathers just don't want to deal with their children any longer, which that is really weird if that happens. But I mean, I understand that sometimes, if you don't have a good relationship with somebody, it's hard to have a good relationship with that child. Is that true? I mean, let's see if anybody has any information. So, Merely, what do you think? I see you are on, but I don't know because I'm always like a peacemaker. Like, so if you want to see your kid, that's fine. I don't care. I'm never like gonna be doing all that baby mama drama. So I don't do that. But I understand that things happen, right? But I definitely wanted to discuss the relationship between, the moms and the dads, and why we can't get along after a breakup, why we still can't take care of the children, why does the dad sometimes walk away and never come back or do. I mean, I think sometimes the men, they were there just for the woman. And because that was the case, once the child is here and they're not with the woman any longer, they no longer take care of their kid. Because I feel like even as, a mom, if my kids were taken, I would fight for them. And I feel like a dad should do the same thing. And I understand that men have more against them than women do. But I don't think that's an excuse to not fight for your children, especially when you do have there's resources out here. I know it's harder, and sometimes the women do get the privilege. However, I mean, get a lawyer. Get a good lawyer to defend your case, like, and help you. That way you have your rights, your visitation. Don't just give up your rights and say, I'm throwing my hands up. Oh well, that's your child, because that child's going to grow up and be a part of society, and he or she will be missing something because you were not there. So you will be responsible for how the society turns out, whether you like it or not. So I think we should all be doing everything in our power to be better parents. Like I said, if you're not able to see your children, there are ways that you can see your children. And then even if you're married and you, like the mom, I know a lot of times this happen. If you want to keep your aid or your assistance or your food stamps, add the dad to your case. That's all you have to do. You just say, hey, the dad lives with me. We're together. And you're still going to get food stamps. So there's loopholes everywhere. And if you just read, you'll find those loopholes if you just need to do that, because I know groceries are really high. And yeah. But that's my spiel for today about where the fathers have gone. I just think it's unfortunate that it's so much against our black men and other men as well, because there's a lot of other non-minorities that are affected as well, that can relate to this. However, I know we are more of a bigger group, because again, we've been through the slavery, then we went through all of that, the welfare and all this, breaking up the family, and it just affected us more because we didn't have as much resources as everybody else did. So, and that's why it's more important for us to stick together even more, because we don't have as much resources. So we have to come together to make sure our children have them. So I'm going to be posting this on my YouTube page. If you have not subscribed to my page or my YouTube channel, it's Heart of the Matter podcast, as well as I do have an audio version that's on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, all of those platforms. So go ahead and download it and listen to. You can listen to this over again if you like, in the gym, if you're working out, if you're cooking, if you're cleaning, whatever you're doing. So I'd like to thank everybody who joined in on this episode 3 of Where Have the Fathers Gone, Heart of the Matter podcast. I do appreciate it, and I'll be talking to you soon. Have a blessed one. Bye bye.